Hello everyone, welcome to ixamBee. I am Manali and today let's talk about LIC AAO and GIC Assistant Manager 2021 exam. But our focus will be descriptive English, especially the reading comprehension section. So this is our agenda for the day. We're going to start off with the exam pattern and then we're going to move on to some tips and tricks which we can use to crack the RC section. And after that, we're going to try to solve a reading comprehension passage together. Now, as we know, this is the general exam pattern, and we will be focusing on part C, right? Especially the comprehension portion, okay? So if you look at part C, it's got 30 marks and there are 3 questions, okay? So it should not be too difficult, but we should not take it lightly, right? Because we need to follow all the rules and abide by the format and go accordingly. Just a quick reminder, and if you're looking for an online course to prepare for the LIC and GIC exam, this is the right time and you have come to the right place. All our courses have flat 25% off, so this is the time to get enrolled. Because as we know, well begun is half done. Okay? Now, how to approach reading comprehension? When you're looking at an RC passage, especially in descriptive English, the first thing that you need to acquire is the art of speed reading. Now, speed reading is very, very different from in-depth reading. It's more of skimming and scanning on the surface, right? You are looking at the text, you are glancing through the text, and you are trying to extract the important matter. And how can you do that? You can do that with the help of keywords, which is very important. So when you're reading the text, you should learn how to pick up the keywords, okay? Because these keywords will lead you to your answer. Second thing, what we usually do is that we start by reading the questions first, okay? So if we read the questions first, and then certain keywords in the questions get fixed in our minds. So when we are reading the passage, those keywords help us to identify the areas for where we are going to gather our information. Now, this is called answer mapping. But please remember, don't be so rigid. Usually, they have a certain pattern, but sometimes the answers will spill over into the next paragraph, or the answer might be scattered throughout the passage. In that case, a very rigid answer mapping will not help. Next thing, please remember, reading comprehension is a test of your expression and your writing skill. And how can you do that? The best way of doing that is to avoid copy-paste. You cannot copy-paste from the original passage. If you are copy-pasting from the parent passage, what you are doing is that you are not showing your power of expression. And then that entire criteria remains unassessed. And that will not fetch you good marks. So you need to write in your own words. And since it's a test of your writing skill, you cannot write in bullets. You need to explain your answer. Okay? Next thing, please remember, there is nothing outside the text. Whatever you are writing, whatever opinions you are expressing, whatever matter you are fetching, must be from within the text. There is nothing outside the text. Don't get material that is not related to the passage. And the last thing, check your grammar. Please check your grammar, check your spellings, check for any awkward expressions that you might have used, okay? So here is a passage. The passage has been divided into 3 parts for the convenience, and they are going to have some questions right after that. Okay? Now we are going to follow the reverse approach. We're going to look at the question first, and then we're going to try to identify how we can derive at the answer. Okay? So let's read the question first. The first question talks about what did the states do that was inevitable, and why was it inevitable? So our keyword here is inevitable and why. So what we're looking for, the keyword is inevitable and why was it inevitable. So when we read the passage, we're going to keep on looking for answers, for content that talks about inevitability of the situation and also the reason. Next question. The next question is about ways the virus spread and what can be done. How do the virus spread and what can be done about it? Yes, so we are talking about virus transmission and methods to arrest that. So if you remember, first one, inevitability of the situation. Second one, transmission of virus and what can be done about it. Third question talks about government measures taken by the state government. Yes? And next, what measures are suggested by the author to lessen the burden of the common people during the lockdown? So, two things, measures taken by the state government and what measures are suggested by the author. Two types of measures, right? So let's quickly do a sort of a memory game. First, inevitability of the situation. Next, we are talking about the virus transmission and what can be done. Third, we're looking at measures taken by the different state governments and those suggested by the author. Now let's go back to the passage and try to see if we can find the answers. Okay? Give yourself a minute and start reading this section of the passage. See, the first sentence itself talks about the inevitable. What was the inevitable? Going into strict lockdown to arrest India's calamitous descent into COVID-19 hell since mid-March. Okay? Did you read it? Okay? So what was the inevitable? Strict lockdown. Why was it inevitable? Because infections were spreading, death rates were going up. Yes, the virus was mutating and creating threat to life. And this happened, remember you have to explain your answer. You cannot stop you. This happened because a lot of wrong things were being done. Wrong messaging, massive political rallies, large religious events. Yes, now just take a look at my answer. What did I write? The inevitable here refers to going into strict lockdown to arrest the surge of infections spreading across the country in the month of May. Spreading infections from 9,000 new daily cases in early Feb to over 44 lakhs in May. And rising deaths, so surge of infections and deaths made this not only inevitable, yes, but people wanted this to happen. Unlike last time when it was forced down on us. This time people wanted the lockdown, okay? And also what else led to the inevitable? People wanted it. There were rising death rates and infections were surging. Also because a lot of wrong messaging was going around. There were political rallies and large religious events. If you don't stop them, our healthcare system would be collapsing because it was exhausted. It needed a breather. Yes? And this lockdown provided the much required respite to the collapsing health system. Yes? So what I saw in the passage, I picked up the information and I wrote it in my own words. Remember the second question, it was about virus transmission and what can be done. Now, we have read this, right? That's one thing you can do. When you have a passage, why don't you chunk it? So chunking your passage, which means dividing it into chunks, it's easier for you to do one piece at a time rather than reading the whole one and not remembering anything. So this part doesn't have anything about virus. We've read it in whole. Let's go to the next part. Let's look at this and see if it has anything about virus transmission or how to arrest it. Okay, just give yourself a minute and read it. Here, remember about transmission, the question about transmission? Yes? Here. See? Spreads primarily through respiratory droplets and aerosols produced when people cough, sneeze, speak, sing, or breathe, and are within 1 meter of each other and also in crowded, poorly ventilated settings. Contact with contaminated surfaces poses another risk. Insistence on wearing good masks, distancing, and prohibition on risky gatherings such as restaurants, malls, religious sites, auditoriums, and on public transport are essential. Okay, this is the matter. Let me see. Let's see how I have written it in my own words. See, who explains that SARS-CoV spreads primarily through respiratory droplets and aerosols. They are produced when people cough, sneeze, speak, sing, or breathe or within 1 meter of each other in a crowded, poorly ventilated environment. Infections also spread when people come in contact with contaminated surface. Therefore, insistence on wearing good masks, distancing, prohibition on risky gatherings such as restaurants, malls, religious sites, auditorium, and public transport are therefore essential. Okay? Did we get that? Okay. Let's look at, remember question 3, steps taken by the government and those suggested by the author. Let's take a look. So this part is not yet complete. Remember? Yes? See. We read till here, right? Okay, we need to read after that. Read this part. Things were different this time. Unlike last time, when everything was shut down, this time people were given some time to prepare and sustain themselves. So, home services were allowed. Tamil Nadu announced some relief measures. Okay. They said, instead of shutting down everything, why don't we avoid a gathering or a crowd and let's go for e-modes, digitalization, e-payments or doorstep disbursements. Okay? Okay. Shops would be open, not closed like last time, but for limited hours. Okay? And everything would be home delivered. Food, consumer goods. If there's an emergency, you can travel without any harassment. So all these measures were taken by the government. You still have one part left. What was suggested by the author? Okay? Here it is. Yes, there you go. See, vaccination, arrange vaccine imports and augment domestic production. We need to have more vaccination. Testing access must be increased. Okay. Now let's take a look at the answer. I have written it in 2 paragraphs because they are 2 parts of the same answer. Okay. The first one talks about all that was done by the government. So, COVID measures, relief measures, doorstep deliveries, e-commerce, whatever was allowed. The staggered way in which the shops were opened. The second one was what suggested by the author. Okay, so States should be allowing door deliveries. Travel for emergencies must be eased because the author supports them as well. So the lockdown window must be used to ramp up oxygen supplies and drugs, and production of vaccine and testing facilities must be improved. Okay? Now, there's something that I would like you to do. Yes? Here are 3 words that usually come as a subpart to the RC questions. You have a make sentences section. So it might just be divided into the entire marks. The weightage might be divided into 2 parts. First would be some marks would be allotted for the question answer and some for the make sentences. Okay? Now, why don't you do something? Why don't you make sentences with these 3 words and leave it in the comment section, and I'm going to take a look. Okay? I hope you found this session useful. I hope it can now make you much more confident when you opt for the descriptive section. Thanks for being so patient, and stay tuned. We'll be back very soon with another amazing video. Thanks for watching.